In this video, I'm gonna pull back the curtain on the first 5 deals that I did, and I wanna show you how I went from 0 to 20 doors in about 9 months. I'm Patrick Menefee, and I'm here to help you create both the time and the financial freedom that you're looking for by helping you master your money, your mindset, and your mission. Now, when I decided that it was time to start looking for a way out of my job, I used real estate. That was my path, like a lot of other people. There's also a lot of different ways to go about pursuing real estate, and even just taking down a deal. There's conventional financing, there's hard money, there's single family, there's multifamily, there's going solo, there's partnerships, there's turnkey rentals, and there's rehabs. And there's a bunch of stuff in between. And honestly, on my first 5 deals, I did a little bit of all of them. So I wanna walk you through a couple of things on each deal. It'll be where I found the deal, what I liked about each one, especially as a beginner, and how I financed it. And then if you stick around till after I get through the 5 different deals, I will jump into a little bit of a bonus of how all of that led me to shift and take a different path. And I'll show you what that looked like and why. Let's dive in and get started. Now, just for a little bit of context, I had built up over the previous 10 years of my professional career, I had built up about $85,000 worth of capital that I had invested into a brokerage account. It was everything that I had saved through my time in the Army, my time in consulting, everything. I liquidated that and I decided I was going all in. You know, the old adage of burning the ships. That's basically what I did. I sold it all and I went to put that money into real estate, and I put that into these first deals. The first deal, this was a 4-plex that was out in Gastonia, North Carolina. Now, I actually found this deal on the MLS, and part of my criteria was when I initially pulled up on, this is ridiculous, but when I initially pulled up properties on something like Redfin, there were way too many, and I had no idea how to sort through them and find the good ones. So I started clicking filters that made sense in order to clear out the pool, which led me to multifamily. So all of these first 5 deals that I did were multifamily. That's where I kind of found my niche. And ultimately I liked that because it provided some just diversification in sources of income and kind of mitigated the risk a little bit in my mind. So all of these deals were done by looking for multifamily properties. Like I said, the first one, found it on the MLS. It had been on the market for a long time. And what I liked about it was I saw already on day 1, it was almost at the 1% rule for rent, which if you're not familiar with that, it means I paid $160,000 for the property. The 1% rule would mean that it is running out for $1,600. It was actually running out at the time for $1,400, but market rent was closer to $3,000. And so I saw an opportunity to do some renovations to this property and really massively increase the rent. Now, it ended up being way more than I expected to do the rehab to make that happen, but you live and you learn. I'm not gonna get into the deep dives of each deal. I'll do those in separate videos. So make sure you subscribe and you'll be notified when you get those or when I release those. Now, that's what I liked about it. Now, how I financed it. This deal was 100% me. I didn't use any partnerships or anything else. And I used a conventional mortgage with 25% down, which if you do the quick math on that, $160,000 at 25% down is $40,000 plus closing costs. And then I had to finance the rehab, which I ended up financing with a credit card, but that was half my money, over half my money went into that one deal. So when I started looking at deals 2 through 5, I knew that I had to do something different because I wouldn't have the money. I would maybe have the money to do one more deal, and that was it. So I started looking for other options. My second deal, I actually found while under contract for my first deal. Again, found this on the MLS. This was 6 units up in Statesville, North Carolina, which is about an hour north of me in Charlotte. What I loved about this deal is that, again, the 1% rule, it was already over the 1% rule. They were each unit was running at about $350 a month. So it was running for over $2,000 a month at a $155,000 purchase price, which was great. I also saw some opportunity there to increase the rents because market rents were more like $500 to $600 a door. I just saw massive opportunity. That one, as I mentioned, I was gonna run out of money. And because I was already under contract for this, there was no way that I could take this deal down by myself, but it was a phenomenal deal. So I financed it through a combination of commercial loan. We ended up putting, I think, 25% down on that one. And I used a partner. Now, my partner was a friend of mine, and this was someone that I'd known for a very long time, served in the Army with, was in college with, and lived together for a long time. We were really close friends, was the best man at my wedding. We went into this deal together, but he lived out of state and he had no interest in managing the property and doing anything actively with it. He just wanted to put his money to use. And so we ended up negotiating to the point where I got 55% of the deal and only put 10% of the cash on the table. So I put $4,000 into this deal and ended up getting 55%, which was phenomenal. This ended up being a really good deal. Again, deep dive on that in the future. Also, I have some details about that one on my Instagram and on my website if you want to go check those out. But that was deal number 2. So now within a week of each other, they ended up closing within a week of each other. I had 10 doors. Partnership was how I went through the rest of my deals too. So the third deal that I did was a duplex. Again, found it on the MLS. Now what I liked about this one was it was $92,000. I saw the potential to, again, renovate a little bit, and I saw the opportunity to rent these for $1,500 to $1,600 a month. I'm looking at a 1.5% to close to 2% rule on this property. Ended up, again, needing some capital. All of these first deals, which is wild to me, I used conventional or commercial financing on. And so I used a 25% down mortgage. We had to bring $23,000 at the table and then finance the rehab. So a buddy of mine that I worked with, we split the deal. I think I brought about 40% of the cash to the table. I got 60% of the deal. He did vice versa. And we took down this deal together. It was okay. Not the best. And I wouldn't quite structure the partnership the same way, especially it was more based on his perceived workload that he would have. And he didn't really do that. And it was just because he was new. I say that as I do my third deal. He was even newer than me. He hadn't done any deals. That was deal number 3. Now we're at 12 doors by the end of the year. I bought the first deal September 13. This deal closed on December 29th of 2019. Now is when I started getting a little bit more creative, thanks to my partners. My fourth deal, I ended up getting this deal through a friend of mine that I'd met in the real estate community. He was also an investor. He was taking action. We were kind of linking arms and going together on this path. And he sends me this deal from a wholesaler that he had found that was 2 duplexes side by side. Now, this was out in Fayetteville, which is about 3 hours away from me. And what we liked about it was, again, the cash flow. I think we were paying $120,000 for these 4 doors. And they could easily rent out for $500 to $600 a door, which again put us probably closer to the 2% rule. And they didn't need a ton of work either. How we financed this one was we went in truly a 50-50 partnership. We both split the workload. It was actually a really good partnership in the way that we split the workload. And we both brought the same amount of money to the table. And it ended up being a pretty solid deal. We ended up selling that one later, but it was a solid deal. And that got me to 16 doors, which then leads me to my final property that I bought in those first 9 months, which was another 4-plex. Now, this 4-plex was out in Fayetteville, North Carolina as well. And this one, I had recently met a realtor that was out there that was a fellow veteran. And so we connected and we got to know each other a little bit. And I was actually on his podcast. You can go check that one out too. It's Military Cash Flow. And he had a deal that he was about to put on the market. It was a 4-plex that was in a really terrible neighborhood. But what I liked about this was, again, the cash flow. I had the opportunity to buy it for $150,000 or so, and it was going to rent out for over $2,000 between all 4 units. Some of the work had already been done to it. It didn't need a ton of work, and I saw some really good opportunity there. That one, again, I was at this point almost out of money and needed to get creative again in financing it. I just recently met another investor that was from California at a real estate meetup that I created, and he was in town for the meetup. We met, connected, built a little bit of a relationship, and so I brought the deal to him knowing that he was looking for deals out in North Carolina. He ended up funding 80% of the deal. I got 40% of the ownership in the deal for bringing 20% of the cash to the table. We used a conventional 30-year mortgage to take it down, and the deal cash flowed. It was a shitty area and not the best property in the world, but for what we were looking for at the time, which was just cash flow, it worked. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I made a pivot, and all of this led me to realize that I needed to pivot. And I want to tell you why. Through the last 4 deals, every single one of them was with a different partner, which means that every partner has a different expectation. Every partnership has different nuances to it. Every partnership has a different relationship. So now I'm managing 4 different relationships for these deals. And if I want to keep going, I have to do more of that. And that sounds like a lot because these guys didn't have the money to put into another deal with me. That sounded like too much. On top of that, really the last deal was a big eye opener where I was doing a lot of work, putting a lot of time into this, and I only got $200 a month out of it. And my time was worth a lot more than that at that point. I was still working a full-time job. I had 20 doors that I was managing, and $200 a month for all the work that I was doing was not enough. So I decided that I need to shift from the income building phase to the capital building phase. And I'll talk about that in a different video. I've got that on my Instagram as well. But the capital building phase for me became my priority. And I did that by flipping properties. So I wanted to flip, generate chunks of capital, and then I would get into rental properties by doing it on my own and being the only person invested in them, so I would make 100% of the returns on it, which is the path that I ended up going, and I enjoyed it. All of this to say, my encouragement to you is take something from these deals. Each one was different. Each one was structured differently, financed differently. There were different benefits of each one. And also that was based on my focus of cash flow. What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for equity growth? Because the deals that you do will be a little bit different. And what stage are you in? Are you in an income stage or are you in a capital stage? Once I realized that I needed to be in a capital stage, my activities looked a lot different. As I wrap up, I want to encourage you to also go back to the start. If you're just getting started in real estate and you're trying to figure out what you want to do and how to get the first steps, buying a property isn't the first step. There's a lot that goes into it. And I talk about that in a previous video. And I talk about the year leading up to my first rental property. What were the steps that I took? What were the things that I did while working full time to get my mind right and to start getting myself ready to go in taking this next step?